Welcome to We Build Great Apartment Communities, the only show dedicated to the process and strategies for transforming apartment buildings to thriving communities. I am your host, John Brackett, and welcome to the show. All right, folks, welcome to another great episode of We Build Great Apartment Communities, the only place where you come to learn how to take apartment buildings and turn them into amazing communities. I am your host, John Brackett. Welcome to the show. I have here another great guest. Her name is Lumi Ispas. And I am very excited to have her on because right now we're going through a very unique market, right? COVID-19. So I think one of the opportunities that we have here is to learn from our past. And so Lumi is someone that has learned from her past. She's been able to build a fairly significant portfolio, which she lost in 2008. And she learned from that experience and has rebuilt a great portfolio now, but she has a very different strategy moving forward, especially in this market, predominantly from the lessons that she's learned from the last recession. So Lumi, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here. Really excited to have you on.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having us.
So you're so welcome. Hey, so one of the things that really intrigued me about our conversation was when we talked about the lessons that you learned, right? But before we get into that, why don't you share your story? Because I think it's a very fascinating one. It's a great one for our audience to hear. So please share your story. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your story.
Oh, thank you so much. So in case you didn't notice from my accent, I'm an immigrant. So came here from Eastern Europe, from Romania. Came from a previously communist country, which means that when I arrived here, I didn't know much about financial education or real estate or any of this. But pretty fast, I got it that real estate is the way to go. I mean, it's said that 80 to 90% of all millionaires are made from real estate.
Right.
Only is at that time, reading Kiyosaki and whatever books I was finding 20 years ago,
Sure.
I didn't know, what's the best way to invest. I thought for multifamily buildings, I would need a 25, 30% down payment, which I didn't have. I mean, I arrived here with $200 in my pocket. So I had to figure out ways to invest with low down payments. So I started investing. I thought the best way to build capital was to do new construction.
Right.
So I started creating a portfolio and I had few lots and plans and permits. I was supposed to start building single family homes. And the plan was to sell those properties and with the cash to buy the big buildings. Now, issue was when 2008 hit, that was unexpected. Let's just put it this way.
Sure.
The mortgages were not manageable because, you have vacant lots. How can you rent them? How can you get cash flow? I mean, I tried to rent them for planting tomatoes, but it didn't work out. Nobody was able to pay me well enough.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. So I was a real estate broker by then and my income went down. So I lost the first portfolio, including my home. And when you start with nothing, I had to figure out how I can rebuild. And being a realtor, I was doing a lot of REOs, a lot of short sales. I looked at the people around me and I said, okay, how come some of the people that own real estate became even wealthier and some lost everything? I said, what's the difference between the two groups, right?
Yes, what a great question.
Right. So I started looking and studying and looking at the investors that were buying in those times that had cash and the capital to buy properties in those years. And from my conversation with them and from studying their deals, one thing I noticed, it was the people that did extremely well were the ones that were holding on to the property. So they were not the flippers, not necessarily the builders. I mean, I can probably tell you that 80-90% of the builders in Chicago went belly up at that time, right? Wow. They lost everything, right? Especially the smaller one, right? Sure. So I realized long-term holding was one of the key because a lot of these people had mortgages in place that were way ahead of 2006, 7, 2008, when there were no money down mortgages given, the no income verification. So these people had fixed interest mortgages and some of them had lower interest, lower than 2007. I believe in 2007, my interest rates were between 8 and 11%. So 8% like on the first mortgage and 11 in the second. So I realized that the whole secret was in the cash flow. Buy long-term, getting fixed interest rates if you can, right? And get a lot of positive cash flow.
Right.
The other thing that I noticed was some of the people that lost their homes, they did have fixed interest rate, they did have cash flow, but they still lost them. The reason they lost them is because they didn't have enough reserves to remodel the units. So let's say a long-term tenant will move out and now their apartment had to be completely turned over. They didn't have $15,000-$20,000 to remodel it.
Sure.
And all of a sudden they had a vacancy. Now the cash flow is gone. And from there, everything goes down the hill and they still lost properties. So putting all together, my biggest lesson, it seems now like so trivial, right?
Right.
Have positive cash flow.
Of course. Hindsight is always 20/20, right?
Right. It's like, have positive cash flow? Really? This is the lesson you learned? I mean, like nobody had told you this before. You didn't understand it from the books. Guess what? You don't. Until you are there, until you realize, yes. Plus, when you lose your job, you can't refinance the properties. Yeah, that was the other thing. Some banks called the loans, and a lot of people, they could pay their mortgages. They lost them because they couldn't refinance in those times. And we're back in the economy that is not exactly the same as 2007, but we still have some issues right now with people losing their jobs.
Sure.
So I'm sure a lot of the people understand what I mean. You lost your job, you have a 5% interest. Right now you could refinance at 2.5%, but because you lost your job, you can't. So those are some of the lessons I've learned. The other thing was buy low. You make your money when you buy.
That's right.
Buy low, make your money when you buy, and learn to finance to grow your portfolio. Start as low as you can. I mean, I started with a 4-unit FHA building again, because that was the first down payment that I could put together. I could get together $20,000 and buy a 4-unit where 75% of the income cover 100% of expenses, and got the unit for free. And that got me back on my feet. That's how I restarted. And then with the tax deduction, the rent I was saving, I kept saving down payments. And then I started working with partners. You also learn that you are as strong as you are. So if 2 people partner up, or 3 or 4, now you become stronger. You become more powerful, right? Because now you're talking about the reserves, the credit, the cash of 2, 3, 4 people.
Sure.
So in 2007, I thought, I can do it by myself. I don't need partners, right? We all want to make it on our own. And then you realize it's an asset. A partner could be an asset if you choose right. The same thing like a property.
Yeah, no, a partner can be an asset for sure. And can also be a liability, a big one.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I'm saying you have to choose it carefully. The way you get pre-approved and you go to do an inspection to the property, you vet the property through the numbers, right? You verify income and expenses. The same thing with your partner. You have to make sure it's the right match. And it's not just the fact that they have to have good credit, cash, and knowledge, but also that you get along. I call it almost like a marriage, right? A partnership. Because I've seen clients that have lost huge properties because their partner went bankrupt, or their partner chose a different path. Yeah. And I had it in my situation, deals that I've done in 2014, 15, where one of the partners decided they want out. Well, we're a year out of the project being done, and all of a sudden the partner wants out because they changed their goals. That doesn't work. Right?
No, it definitely can create some problems. Yeah, no, I've been in that situation as well. And I just bought my partner out. He wanted to sell. And I said, you know what? I just simply can't sell right now because of the tax impact, but I'm happy to buy you out, right? And so we were able to arrange something like that and worked out. But yeah, partners can be a huge asset, can also be a very challenge, right? A big challenge or a liability for that matter. So Lumi, I really appreciate how you explained just what you went through and how you went through it and what you learned from it. One of the things that stood out in your conversation was just how you are changing your strategy today based on what's going on in the marketplace. In other words, based on what the market is offering you, you're changing your strategy based on that. And of course, your learning experiences, right? So can you talk a little bit about your strategy in this market today? What are you doing? Maybe what are you seeing and what are you doing and why?
Great question. So right now in our market, I'm in Chicago. Chicagoland, it's actually the 8th least most undervalued market in the nation for real estate. So we have great opportunities here. When I'm looking at multifamilies, I can find a lot of great deals. And I'm saying the opportunity during this market turn is the interest rate. You see, in 2007, 2012, let's say, that was the prices, the low prices. But right now is the low interest. That's where the gold is. So whoever can get the properties that they plan to hold long term, locked in with low interest rate, imagine the cash flow will go up, right? So again, the money is in buying properties where we can lock in this low interest rate. So I have a lot of clients that have bought 3-4 unit buildings with 3.2% interest rate. I'm having one client right now that just got approved today for 2.99% fixed 30-year mortgage with 2.99 interest rate. I mean, it's unbelievable to me.
It really is. It's incredible. Yeah.
And the cash flow is spectacular. So my strategy is this winter, We were sharing a little bit earlier that in Midwest, in the winter, there are more opportunities than in the summer because, of course, we have that beautiful weather called winter, or the windy winter in Chicago, where the weather is so bad that a lot of people don't want to be out in the winter. So because of that, number of buyers decreases in the winter. The older occupants, the ones that actually intend to live in the property or micromanage, they are out. The big investors are most of the time are in vacation. So there are some more warm and some more nice. So because of that, our the number of buyers in the market in the winter, it's low. So you can get some deals. And for me, what I want to do, I'm putting winter with the interest rates together, and I'm saying, well, I'm planning for the next 10 to 20 years. If I can get some smaller buildings, 2 to 4 unit buildings, some graystones, so the most loved type of buildings in Chicago are the graystones, and after that, the brownstones.
Right.
So if I can find some graystone and brownstones, the gorgeous and boulevards, the neighbors that are the next to the hottest one right now, that I would rather buy 5 or 6 of those with 30-year fixed mortgages and with the cash flow anywhere between 10 to 15%, 10 to 15% cash on cash, which I think is spectacular. And what I'm looking for, I know that the inflation is coming. I know that the rents are going to go up, that the prices are going to go up. So if I know that I don't have to refinance these properties the next 20 years, the plan is they will probably be paid off, and 20 years from now, they will probably quadruple in value because they are in neighborhood that is coming up. It's on the path of growth, right?
Sure.
I mean, I would love to buy some bigger buildings, but I have found a lot of opportunities. We were just talking that I found the 11 unit that I'm looking into. Even that one, the numbers don't really work. So I have to find a way for the numbers to work. So that's why I'm sticking to when I can get a cash flow, because the cash flow is king. We talk about 2007, how everybody lost their properties because they didn't have cash flow. Today, at least in Chicago, almost 80% of people that own real estate, I don't think they need to go to foreclosure because they will cash flow. So even single families, condominiums, as long as they can be rented, because the interest rate is so low and their mortgages are so low and rents have gone up, even if they can make their mortgage, move out, rent it out, and you will make money.
Yeah.
You don't need to lose it to foreclosure. So that's why I guess I wanted to take advantage of this particular time of the interest rate, because as soon as the COVID is going to go away, and we know that there are so many medical companies working on the vaccination, medicine for it. So within a year, I would say that a year and a half will probably go away. So as soon as that is going to go away, the interest rates are going to go up. So to me, it's like I know that I have about a year or less of time to get some great interest rates locked into my loan.
Yeah, you know what, Lumi, I think that's a really great perspective, right? I really like how you articulated that because I really believe, like you said, you want to take what the market is giving you.
Right.
Okay, you want to take what the market's giving you. In 2008, when we started into this business, when I started building out this business, that's exactly what I did. I focused on exactly what the market was giving us, where the best opportunities were based on what the market was giving us. And then we started keeping the properties in our portfolio that made a lot of sense, right? And of course, building and selling off those that didn't make as much sense to keep, but we kept that trend going for quite some time. And now, of course, we're doing some different things. But I really appreciate what you said. And the big lesson there that I'm hearing is to take what the market's giving you. And a great example of that is in escrow to close on a second home, vacation house for my family and I, in a market that we really love. And the interest rate on that is 2.625% 30-year fixed, right? I mean, it's just incredible. And I have 2 of those going for the same reason. It's take what the market will give you.
Right.
With those 2 properties, one of them is a vacation home that we'll probably end up living there permanently at some point. But when we're not there, we can rent it out. The other property we can rent out as well. But the combined net cash flow from both of those that I'm projecting on those with a 30% vacancy is like $50,000 a piece.
Wow.
And it's predominantly because of the cheap financing. And that's a great example of take what the market is going to give you. Take what the market is giving you, and you can still create massive opportunity by doing that. And a lot of it has to do with moving in the direction where you just don't have a lot of people going to, right? I call it going in the opposite direction of the masses. And you've been able to articulate that really, really well. So thank you for doing that. Okay, so I'm going to shift a little bit and I'm going to ask you some more questions. Okay, this time You've done a great job of talking a little bit about the acquisitions in this marketplace, what you're looking for, why, some of the distinctions between 2008 and 9, and then, of course, how you're financing the properties and taking advantage of the low interest rates in this marketplace, because that's what's being given to us, right? That's part of the opportunity. That's part of the opportunity. So now I'm going to pivot a little bit and talk about management. Let's talk about management, because you said something that I found very interesting, and that was you see huge opportunity in the winter seasons, which makes sense because you typically have more opportunity there because you have more people willing to sell, because that's when they start running into more problems, right?
Absolutely.
And that's a management issue typically. So can you talk a little bit about that? I haven't owned real estate in states with really cold weather, with sub-zero cold weather. So can you talk about maybe some of the challenges that get overlooked by investors when they're coming into markets with cold weather? And then how do you manage those properties moving forward? What are some of the best practices that you can share on managing assets, especially in cold weather?
Great question. So my portfolio, most of it, I kind of self-manage. The reason is that when I bought them, I remodeled them. They're in great condition. I have great tenants, so everything is automatic, right? So income expenses are automatic. Also, I don't have a lot of expenses, a lot of maintenance requests, because your appliances, your plumbing, electric, new faucets. So even if I only remodel completely at home, when I buy it, I change the faucets, I change the toilets. But that's where the problems are usually.
Sure.
I make sure that the plumbing is routed. So all of a sudden, I have very little management to do. We do have the winter, though, as you were just saying. So we still have some landscaping and snow. So what I do, I hire people, or I hire a landscape company to deal with the salt and with the snow. That's one way. The other way is to hire somebody in the building. One lesson I've learned, you do not lower their rent by the amount of money they should make from that. You pay them separately. Because early in my investing, I've done that in one of my buildings. And what happened is when I renewed the lease, the tenant said, well, would you give me a $200 break and I'll take care of the building. I'll clean the snow. And I said, sure, absolutely. Guess what? Within 2 weeks, everything stopped. The lease was locked in, $200 less, and he didn't do anything. And when I talked to him, he said, does he say in the lease? Does he say anywhere? We don't know.
Wow.
So he paid me, and I was locked with him for a year. I could not believe it. Of course, I didn't renew his lease a year later, but he paid me. So I could not believe it. I thought I'm smart, right? I've learned my lessons.
Sure.
So now, if I do anything like this, I have to see it. I have to see pictures. I have to see an invoice, and that's how you get paid for anything. So you can still do this. I mean, there are a lot of teenagers and young kids that will be happy to do the work. It's not a lot of snow where you need a machine or anything. Chicago has more lots. So it's not like a big square footage where you have to remove the snow. You just have to put salt around the walkways and maybe remove the snow in front of your building. So that's kind of the amount of snow it is. But if you have bigger area, then just hire a company that will send you an invoice, once a month, and they will clean up the snow for you. And then,
you know what? I really like that. So some things that I heard there was when you're purchasing a property for the purposes of renting it, right? In order to really maximize the value, but also to make sure that you're operating it efficiently, that you improve the property when you buy it, right? You cure all the deferred maintenance. And then you also make sure that the appliances are working properly, or you spend money for newer appliances so that you don't have to deal with maintenance once you actually move a tenant in, right? Or you'll have less maintenance for that matter. So I think that's really important. I always tell people you either pay for it now or you pay for it later, right? And I always rather pay for it now. I rather pay for it up front so that we're not paying for it later. And I made this mistake before where one of the first properties that I purchased many years ago and got it at a great price, put a tenant there, and tenant paying on time, never was late. So because of that, I stopped going down and taking a look at the property, right? I just stopped stopping by and doing an inspection. Usually it was once every month, then it went to once every 3 months, and then it went to once a year. Well, when I went back to go look at it at the end of that year, property just had massive deferred maintenance, right? I couldn't believe it. It was a combination of things that wear and tear items, weathering, and then also just the resident in the property just living in there very hard, right? I mean, very active in that property. So that was a pretty big lesson. And so since then, what we've done is we've created what we call maintenance checklist that we use and we've standardized for all of our properties, right?
Oh, that's pretty
So
cool.
that those things don't happen. But one of the biggest experiences during that period was you either fix things now, because if you don't and you neglect deferred maintenance, right, you're going to have to fix it later. What ended up happening was we put a bunch of money into it, right, to cure all the deferred maintenance.
Yes.
Then we tried to sell it. We didn't get our price, and our basis was so low that we said, you know what, let's just hold on to it. The rate was like 4.25%, 30-year fix. We said, let's just keep it and we can sell it and exchange that money into something else, right? But we end up spending something like, I think it was about $15,000 just to bring the property up to standard to sell. And we end up not selling that. So we spent $15,000 that we really didn't need to. And here's the crazy thing. If we were just maintaining the property like we should have been every single month and using our reserve budget to cure all those little items, maybe it would have cost us about $1,500 a year.
Instead of
right? For maybe 4 years instead of the 15,000. So what you said is really valuable. And I appreciate you sharing that. What are some things that stand out to you in this market that has forced you to evolve versus the market in 2008? Because one of the things that these markets bring about is change, right? They force us to evolve. They force us to change. They force us to learn. They force us to get better. And that's one of the reasons why I love this business, is because nothing's constant, right? We're constantly learning and growing and changing and evolving. But when we are faced with challenge like now, forces evolution. And that evolution can either make us much better, right? Or it can slow us down until we're forced to adapt. And I see both of those things going on. So I can tell in listening to your language that you're constantly learning, right? You're constantly learning, constantly finding ways to grow and evolve. So what have been some of the skill sets that you feel like you've taken on or you've created for yourself in this market versus 2008?
Great question. So, well, first of all, I went online. Just put it this way.
Sure.
Because I'm also a realtor and I teach investment seminars and everything was in person. I was refusing or resisting doing anything online up to March, pretty much. And then the quarantine came and I had it all scheduled and everything done. And everybody was texting me, so what are we going to do? Because we can't be in a room, 30, 40 people. So I said, okay, I'll take it online. I don't think you can learn online. So I was so negative. I thought only, if I have everyone there and I explain to it and I look in their eyes and I see that they understand it will work. And I was pleasantly surprised. It actually worked really well. We had a huge turnout because now people could come in from their own living rooms. No more parking, right? No more driving and parking. So going online, that was my biggest thing. Second, I had to go back to the market statistics. So you see, between 2008 and 2014, I was stickler for details. I mean, I was checking my market statistics, how many properties sell every month, what's the inventory, the numbers of pending, the numbers of sold. And I let it go because, the market was great. I mean, prices were only going up. Everything was going great. February, even before the quarantine, I sensed what is happening. Because when you go once through an economy like we went in 2008, you feel it. You get to the point where you see what's happening, the fear, because it's usually the uncertainty, right? When the quarantine came in, people are like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Everything is going to drop. It's the uncertainty. And if you are younger, you haven't been in the business in those years, you don't know what to expect. To me, it's like I went back and I said, what helped me get out at that time? So I went back to the basics, right? Like I said, I did my market statistics. So my market statistic came strong. So even before NAR came out and say, oh, wow, we have a low inventory and we have a lot of sales, our pendings are huge. I already knew that, like up 2 months in advance, because I was seeing the inventory in the suburbs dropping, because everybody was moving from downtown and the downtown growing, the vacancy in downtown going up. So I could run the numbers and I could adjust immediately my strategy, my tenant, like my rentals. I renew leases immediately, because I had a lot of month-to-month tenants. So I pretty much called and I say, hey, are you good? Are you okay? How are you doing first, right? I want to make sure they're okay. And then I put them all on 1-year leases to get them through the winter. And the same thing with my landlords. I called all my clients, my landlords, and I said, this is the time for you to renew the lease. Oh, yes, but in the summer we'll get more money. Not right now. Right now we have COVID. This is not the market to change tenants. You do not want vacancies right now. Lock in. If you can do even 2-year lease, get in 2-year leases. And people are like, wow, yeah, but I want an increase. Forget about increases. Lock it in, because that's especially here in Chicago. I don't know about you guys, but downtown Chicago, which has a lot of universities, a lot of hospitals, we have a huge inventory right now, and a lot of the units that they were renting to students, because we have tens of thousands of students coming in every August, they're gone. They're studying from home. They're not coming in downtown Chicago.
Sure.
That created a huge increase in inventory. Well, I kind of had an idea. I didn't know what's going to happen, but I knew that a lot of people in 2007, a lot of the students moved home. So even if they had to take a train and drive an hour and a half, they would move home with their parents instead of renting a place. Because between 2008 and 2012, people couldn't afford to have a rental apartment. So I kind of went in that mindset, and I acted to secure whatever leases were unsecured, and also dropped the price down leases to rent them out immediately. So that was one of the things I did. Second, I looked at the loans I had because interest rates were dropping. So refinance, right? Lock in the low interest rates.
Sure.
What I did. So one of my buildings my cash flow went up $500 just from refinancing. I mean, great point. Plus, you don't have a month mortgage payment. That went into the reserve. So now all of a sudden I have even more reserves and a better cash flow. And that's what I've been doing since. Like, I'm watching the market, I'm watching the statistics. Everything is online right now. All my webinars are online. My coaching is online. I'm doing a lot of videos. We used to do a lot of showings on video. So we had no problem doing showings. I hired Matterport. Besides professional pictures, I am doing video tours, like professional video tours with the 3D. It's called Matterport. So I'm doing that for most of the units. So of course, if I have a tier and 6 units look almost the same, I'll do it only for one, right?
Right.
We'll use the same one and let the tenants know that the other unit is approximately the same, if it's the same finish. Same thing with a construction. I actually started a project that I was waiting, and I wasn't sure if I should start a new construction project, a 4-unit building just west of downtown. But interest rate dropped, and all of a sudden the contractors that I was getting bid from a year ago, they dropped the prices because they were afraid that they're not going to have jobs. People went back home, and these people that had jobs set up, they couldn't work inside people's homes, right? So because of that, contractors all of a sudden were free in March. So what I did, I was getting really spectacular prices on construction. So I started the new construction, which is $1.5 million building. So, to get a 15% reduction in price, really good.
Sure.
Interest rate, same thing. I got the lower interest rate, really good. And that's what made me realize that this is it. This season, this economic turn is going to be about the interest rate, not about the prices, because the prices are climbing. And of course, the prices are climbing because the interest rate is so low. What's going to happen when the interest rate go up, we shall see. But right now, the market is pretty strong because even the owner-occupants can't lose their properties because the government is allowing them to shift payments, right? 6 months, a year up to the end of the loan. So between the low interest rate and the possibility of cash flow, we are so far from the market in 2008, right? And all the loans given in the last 7-8 years, the banks have been so strong, have so rigorous, checking people's credit and income and getting them approved, that's another assurance that the market will stay strong.
Yeah.
So I would say for anyone that's looking to buy in this market, lock it in. This is what I would say.
I think those are some really, really great points. So some key takeaways that you shared there was you have to develop a stronger skill set online, which you have. The second was data.
Yeah.
So
data.
Your willingness to become a person that was studying the markets, right? And you stayed ahead of the curve by studying data, by learning data instead of waiting on someone else to give you the information. You went out there and you sought it out yourself, right? You became the expert in that area. I think that's really huge. And then thirdly, the thing that I heard was communication, right? Constant communication, improving how you communicated, not only with your tenants, but it sounds like also with your partners and the clients that you're working with as well, right? So those are skills that you've already had, but this market has required that you improve those skills, right? That we all do for that matter. But I think the investors and the professionals that are really going to excel in this marketplace, those 3 skills that you just shared, they're going to take them to another level, right? I always say you can't just provide good service anymore, right? No. Good is just not good enough for your business to thrive. And very good is not good enough for your business to be profitable. I mean, you have to be excellent in order to achieve superior results in your business and to create great margins and be ultra profitable. And so for that, I want to thank you for being on the show. We're at the end now. of our show, but you've been a tremendous, tremendous guest. And I'm so grateful that you've been able to come on. I know we've played a little bit of phone tag, but really great to have you on. I know you're a wealth of information, especially in your marketplace and with your experiences. So I have one more question for you that I've been dying to ask. Okay. So I know you get invited to speak at the Chicago Realtor Association events quite a bit. And then also, I believe, the national events about your experiences, right? And also investing, because through those seminars or those speaking engagements, you interact and engage with a lot of people and you share your story. So why is it that they reach out to you to share that story and then also your strategies? What stands out to you when they invite you to go share that? Why is it that they're asking you to share that story, especially in this marketplace? Because inside of that answer, there are many golden nuggets, right? So I'm excited for you to share.
It's National Association of Realtors, which is the third biggest party.
National Association, there we go.
Yeah, they have over 1.6 million of realtors and partnerships, right, that have membership. And Century 21, because I'm a Century 21 agent, so Century 21 franchise also has been inviting me.
Interesting.
Our agents. So in my seminar, in my own investing, I use multiple techniques. But so one of them, the one that got me back on my feet in 2012, was getting kind of like house hacking loans, right? Owner-occupant loans. So I have a plan where I can show you how to buy minimum of $1 million worth of real estate with very low down payments. And the goal is, if let's say you are not somebody that wants to do real estate full time, you love what you do, you're a school teacher, you are a realtor that loves selling, investing is not your thing, right? Whatever industry you are in, you love your industry or your business. Thing is, real estate is still what it will give you financial freedom. It's still what it will give you security long term. So all of us need a roof, right? All of us need a home to live in. So what I've been doing, I created the plan in 2010, when I lost everything. And I'll be fair here, it took some time. First, you had to cry and get out.
Of course.
Now it does this. Let's make it short.
Absolutely.
But then you get over it and you're like, okay, well, I've lost 10 years of my life. I work 60-80-hour weeks. Why did I lose it for? Let's at least make something out of it, right? And to me at that time, I also discovered that the time is what I missed the most. It was not about the money, because the money you can make it again. But it was the time that I lost. I didn't see my kids growing up, right?
Right.
I working 7 days a week. This is what I was doing. And when I created this plan, I said, okay, if somebody's like me, and if you look around, over 60% of people live paycheck to paycheck. So most of the people in this country are in the same place where I was in 2010. Right? So I said, for somebody like me, how would I get myself to buy $1 million worth of real estate to pay it off? Because in order to retire in this country, you need at least $1 million in net worth, and by 65 to be able to retire. And that's like the minimum, bare minimum. And you clearly can't save it from your $50,000 job, because again, the percent of country lives paycheck to paycheck. So I made it a simple formula. I said, if you buy as many millions as you want to retire, but the trick is you have to buy enough to get enough cash flow to get financial freedom now. So in order to live your life on your terms, to do what you really want, and not to stay in your 9 to 5 because you have to, but maybe follow your passion, you need to have enough money coming in every month to be able to at least cover your bill. So in my seminars, we sit down, we create 2 goals. One, how many millions you want to acquire. Second, it's what's the financial freedom number? And this is not a dream number. It's not a 10, 25,000 a month. It's how much are my bills? $3,500 a month, 4,000. Okay, let's get to that number first before you jump to the 10, 15, 25, right? And people can see that doable, right? And I said, how do we buy them with owner-occupant loans? And you start with the FHA loan, or if a veteran get a VA loan, a doctor can buy with no money down with a physician loan, but most of the people will use the FHA. So you can buy a 3-4 unit building with an FHA loan, very little down payment, live for free, get the tax deductions, get that money to save to build your next down payment, and buy the second property with a low down payment, maybe a 5% conventional. The same thing, you run the numbers, you make sure you know that you're going to have to live there only a year as an occupant, and you move into the third, you buy the third, and the third could be your home if that's what you want, and that should be the smallest because now you are paying the mortgage. The first 2 are going to give you cash flow. And of course, depending on how ambitious you are, we can keep going and buy multiple properties this way. But the National Association of Realtors and Century 21 wanted me to teach realtors how to do this for themselves.
Sure.
So because in our business, you don't have an economy that goes from low to up, right? We know how it goes.
Right.
So as a realtor, how do you get more freedom? Also, we all need tax deductions. We all know having real estate, you just got huge tax deductions, right? And number three, if you learn how to do this for yourself, you can teach your clients how to invest for their retirement, for their kids' college, and to teach their own kids further how to invest. So as a realtor, if you have these skills, because these are not skills that we are taught in real estate school, we are taught how to sell houses, right? How nice the kitchen, is the basement finished, like pretty much that's what how big is the yard, right? We have nothing about how you're going to look at the cash flow, the numbers, analyze the income expenses cap rate. We don't have anything like that. So I guess they invited me again to share how to teach other people financial education through investing in real estate with low down payments, and to share that with their clients. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And I really appreciate the explanation. And I can completely see now why they invited you. For one, it's one thing to talk about something. It's one thing to present something. It's another to present something that you have lived yourself, right?
Right.
I always tell people it's really difficult to master something if you haven't lived it. Or it's difficult to teach something if you're not living it today. It really is. That's why I just don't, right? I don't teach or I don't coach things on that I just either have not lived or I'm not living today, because it makes you just average or below average when you try to teach something that you're not living, right? You're just not. So I can completely see why you were invited, and you keep getting invited back because of the fact that you're teaching something that you have lived, and now you're living through multiple cycles, right? So I want to commend you for that, because I think that's really awesome. And you've been a great guest. How do people find you, Lumi? What's the best way for people to find you?
Oh, thank you. So I have a website, which is my name, luminitaispas.com. But if you can email me, the same thing is luminita.ispas@gmail.com, or my cell phone, 773-392-2906. I have free webinars. Now it's about 2 a month where I teach this strategy. And I also have a group coaching where I teach not just the strategy, but others and the mindset of an investor. As you know, Tony Robbins says 80% is mindset and 20% mechanics. So I've been through a lot of training, including Business Mastery from Tony, but a lot of other trainings. So because of that, I've created this group coaching, and I took what I've learned from everyone, where I saw that it works. And we have accountability, people partner up, and it's spectacular. We have a WhatsApp group where everybody's asking questions, post articles, and because my coaching is all about investing and becoming financially educated in such a way that you understand how 1% in interest rate will change your financing, how to figure out private money, how to figure out how to set up partnership with that are win-win, right? Because we are always looking for win-win partnerships. Those are the best, right? Same thing, how to buy with owner financing, because especially now, by the way, guys, if you are here on this call today and you find deals where the seller doesn't have enough equity and they have a good interest rate, take over their mortgage. You might be able to take over their mortgage and give them a little bit of cash and get an asset that otherwise, you might not be able to finance otherwise. So that's another opportunity that I think we're going to see in this market, because there are people that are skipping their 6 months payments. They're pushing them towards the end, and they become accustomed to having no mortgage. And it's not going to be easy for them. They can find a job or to start paying again. And especially if there are retirees that want to move and they refinance, they took already the cash out, they don't have a lot, they will be willing to give the building to somebody that's walking in and is willing to take over the mortgage and promise to pay the mortgage and infuse the cash into the property to remodel it. That's, again, I think there are a lot of opportunities in this. We probably will see more. And I keep saying COVID is going to go away, but it's not as simple. It's just that it's all going to be about the medicine or about that will show up, the cure, right? Or the vaccination. One of those come up, the interest rates are going to go up. That's all we should know as investors. That's all we have to be focused on as investors. So we want to just take action before that happens.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I really think that's a great point. Well, Lumi, I want to thank you again for being on the show. You've been a great guest. Really appreciate you having you on. And I want to wish you continued success. And I look forward to staying in touch and ideally doing some work together.
Thank you, John. Same here. You've been wonderful. I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Clarity of purpose creates our greatest competitive advantage. When we transform apartment buildings to thriving communities, we improve how people live and create assets with high profit margins. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this up with a friend. I'm John Brackett, bringing you things you can implement right away.